On The Go with me, Vanessa Pizzuto, but I am not alone. In the studio with me is Yvonne John. Hello, Yvonne.
Hello.
It's great to have you with us, Yvonne. And you have written a book. And I said a few minutes ago, that's the book, indeed, Dreaming of a Life Unlived, intimate stories and portraits of women without children. And I was saying a few minutes ago, something I found out in your website, that 1 in 5 women in the UK will reach the mid-40s without children, and this is not their own choice.
That's right.
And that's really, really difficult. So I appreciate the fact that you're here and that you've been brave sharing your story. But before we get there, can I know what kind of dreams you were dreaming as a young teenager?
Oh, I think I had so many dreams. So many. Most of it was trying to get out of home and away from my parents because I just wanted to be free. But sorry, I know my parents are going to cringe when they hear this. But for me, I remember, I think when I looked back, I never remember if I truly wanted to get married or kids, because it was the messages we got from our parents. And I know my parents would say, you know, wait till you get married, when you're married and you'll have kids. So I knew it was going to be part of my life. So within that framework, I knew in my head I was going to get married by the time I was 25 and I'd have 4 kids.
Oh, wow. 25 and
Yes.
married. Wow. So when did you get married?
39.
That's quite a difference.
Yes.
You waited a long time.
I did, and it was waiting for my Mr. Right, because
Right.
I think one of the things we don't truly understand is really how to date, how to find the person that you want, and most of that's because we don't know who we are. So until we know who we are, how are we going to be with someone else?
Until you figure out what is it that you want.
Absolutely. And also, we're supposed to get a career first. Get educated and then have a career first. There was this pattern we had to follow before we were even supposed to entertain
I
having a
wonder
boyfriend.
whether that pattern actually comes from God or culture or what.
For me, I'd say culture.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that. Anyway, so you did get married. You were 39. Were you, as soon as you got married, were you planning to have children with your husband?
So when I met my husband, and I met him at 38, we talked about basically having kids. And because of our age, we actually didn't think it would happen. And because of my journey, I thought actually my opportunities to become a mum had gone. And he thought because of his age, actually that time had passed as well. So we suspected that our married life would be just the 2 of us. We didn't expect to have children, and we didn't actually plan. We didn't actively say we're going to try. For the first year of my marriage, because for me it was just the greatest experience I was ever having. I was in love and it was so brilliant.
Yeah, I waited long for this.
Exactly,
girl.
and I never thought it would happen. So this was
you had given up.
I had given up.
Yeah.
So to have met someone who wanted to, marry me was huge. And I was like, yay, let's go for it.
Yes.
And also I wanted to marry him,
Yeah.
Like, you go along and you get one or the other wanting it and not both at the same time. But finally the stars aligned and it all happened, and I was like, yes. And for the first year it was amazing. It was brilliant. I was in love. I was happy. We were having a life. We were planning a life together. And at 40, I turned around and said that I wanted to try to have a baby. Again, I wasn't expecting it to happen, and in my mind, because of my age, I suspected it probably wouldn't. I know people who got pregnant in their 40s. I have family members, I have friends who had, so I knew it was possible, but at the same time knew it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't want to hit menopause. I remember distinctly thinking, I don't want to hit menopause without having of trying, because I felt that, given that I was married now, I felt that if I'd got to menopause and hadn't even tried, I would have really had been sad about it.
Regretted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get married to a fabulous guy. It sounds like you were so in love. This is amazing. And you decide, okay, let's try for children. And what happens?
So we tried. Yeah. We really tried.
Yeah.
And because the messages of when you're younger is, don't get pregnant, don't, bring babies home. And also, you're supposed to get married before that all happens as well. I call it the formula. So if you do it all right, it will all work out. So I never envisioned that actually it wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I was in this place where we just were actively trying, and we tried naturally for 3 years. And then at the age of 42, going on 43, I was surprised nothing had happened. And there were times when, you thought, oh, maybe it's this month. I mean, actually, pretty much throughout the whole journey, every month you go, maybe, yeah, this is the month, we've got it right this time. And then every month I was just disappointed.
Having hope is really challenging.
It is.
No one really speaks about how hard it is to hold on to hope.
Yeah.
And how crushing it is, because every time, every cycle, you're holding on to hope, you're believing, and then you see your dreams.
The thing around
evaporate.
hope is that it keeps you in denial. And what I've realised is no one actually talked about the fact that it might not be possible.
Yeah.
It's always have hope, it will happen.
Yeah.
And so you don't have a mindset of, well, what if it doesn't?
Right.
And you don't plan for what if it doesn't.
Because we don't speak about it.
That's right.
We don't speak about it. Yeah.
Which is actually not the greatest place to be, because you're not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it becomes the biggest shock. I remember going to my GP and questioning why this isn't happening. And I know there was no sense of urgency around anything. I mean, being 42, 43, you would think they would be going, right, let's go and sort this out.
Let's check it out.
But they weren't. I had to keep pushing, and I really had to fight. I was lying, actually. Just, yes, I've been doing it for 10 years when I was doing it for 3, whatever. I just had to push this along because I knew I didn't have the time to wait.
Yeah.
So I managed to convince my GP to send me for fertility testing. So I had a year of fertility testing. And again, people think it's all easy. And I know even mothers, parents out there have journeys of the difficulties around fertility. But that, again, is not talked about. And because it ends in the baby, it's almost like people forget that it was hard, or the journeys they went on.
Tell the story from the happy ending.
That's right.
I had problems, but now I have a baby. And there's a different story.
It is a different story. So that the understanding of what that difficult journey isn't there. The perception of how hard it can be isn't there. Because why do you need to dwell on that?
Yeah.
Because you've got baby. But then there's a group of women like myself that actually have gone through that journey, are struggling, don't know who to talk to, don't understand what they're going through, and don't get the help they need because actually they're isolated and alone in those feelings.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, when I was on my part of the journey when I was going through the testing, that was a very lonely and isolating road because I certainly didn't tell anybody. Me and my husband didn't tell our families what was going on because we didn't want to have to answer for that. We didn't really understand it for ourselves. And it was so personal that you don't even know what to say. We've been trying and we've not managed to succeed and now we're here. You don't know what to say.
Words for it.
You don't.
Because we don't talk about
exactly.
it. We don't have words for it.
And also it's not normalised.
Yeah.
Because no one's talking about it. So you feel like there's something wrong with me. So therefore you can't say anything more than that. And I remember that year of testing that it was really hard because, again, there was no urgency. You'd see a consultant. I would go for a test, and that would take months to get the test because the NHS is so great with their waiting list that you don't get an appointment next week. It's 2-3 months down the line. Then it was, right, we'll refer you back to the consultant to review the test. 2-3 months down the line, you get another appointment. They want to do another test. So it's waiting, test, waiting, consultant, waiting, test. And you're in this hope that they're going to find something that they can help you with. Because if we find something wrong with you, and I'm using that term very loosely, but if we can find something wrong with you, we can do something about it. And that's where you're at. Because you think that's what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember in October 2014, after I'd had the last set of tests, and some of them are horrible and painful. It's not a pleasant journey at all. And also, we argued a lot during that time because my husband felt like I was treating him like a piece of meat because it just became about having a baby. There was no romance. There was no
sparkle.
There was nothing. It was just this robotic, right, I'm ovulating because I was taking the test. I'm ovulating. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
I didn't even want him to kiss me. It was that robotic.
Yeah.
So when I sat in this office in front of this consultant, and he said to me, we have what we call unexplained infertility. He said, there's nothing wrong with me. They cannot find anything wrong with me. They couldn't find anything wrong with my husband. So just keep trying.
Wow.
And I sat there. I remember I was numb.
You would?
I had no words because I probably was just going, in my head.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't understand what he was telling me because it didn't make any sense.
It doesn't. So basically you're telling me that I can have children, you don't know why, and I should just carry on with my life like if nothing.
Well, you know, you have, I suppose you have options. You know, he gave me the option of trying for IVF.
Right.
But I had a 4% chance of conceiving. And I would have to pay for myself because I was pretty much, I think I was 43 at that time.
Over the age in which they will cover for it.
Exactly, and in the area I live in, the cut-off was 40. So I was way past that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was, you know, you've got 4% chance of conceiving, but you would have to do it privately. And it's about 4 to 8k a round of IVF. And also at that time, because I was so numb, I just shut down and I couldn't think of anything else. I couldn't think of what my next step was. All I could do was, all that happened was I was in this suspended place of numbness. Didn't understand what I was going through, didn't understand what it meant, didn't understand what would happen next, and I didn't have any words to articulate it. Yeah. At all. And I remember going home from the office, because it was kind of like, yeah, just go home and keep trying, pat on the back, thumbs up, yay, big smile, you'll be fine. And I knew I wasn't fine.
Of course.
I went home and I just pretty much died on the bed and burst out crying. I couldn't do anything more than just cry. I couldn't even talk to my husband about it. I started to resent him because I felt like he didn't want it as much as me. Like I was fighting for this and he wasn't. He was not that bothered. Yeah. And it was horrible. It was horrible to be there for both of us because then I shut him out. I didn't want to talk to him about it. I didn't have the words to explain it. Then I couldn't tell anyone else because no one else knew what I was going through. Then I remember going to friends' homes and all the kids are there, their kids there, and with your friends with young kids, they've got other friends with young kids. So there's a whole group of them and you're sitting there. And I never thought about it before. I remember going to my friend's house and sitting there and instantly watching these kids and I thought, I can't stay. I just want to go and cry.
Absolutely.
And I didn't understand that. That was very unexpected for me because I didn't imagine that would be the case. I knew I was sad, but I didn't imagine that I was grieving because that didn't make any sense to me either. I remember being on a train and I remember this woman getting on with her son and he was the cutest little boy. And I watched their interaction and I needed to get off that train because I was just going to burst out crying. And there was just other incidents of this, hearing the words, I'm pregnant, I'd run off and cry. I remember even at work at that point in time I was asked to give a leaving speech for someone who was going on maternity leave.
Oh no.
And no one knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
So they didn't even comprehend. And I think even when people do know, they still don't actually comprehend you cannot actually do this.
Yes.
But I remember doing that speech. And as everyone gathered around the girl to wish her luck, I just walked out of the workplace and I went, sat on a bench and I burst out crying.
Of course.
I couldn't do anything more than cry. And I remember talking to a friend who's been through it all. She's older than me and she's childless. And she just went, you're grieving. And I said, what are you talking about? Because I haven't lost anything.
You lost a dream, a life that could have been.
Yeah. And, as not knowing that was possible, I didn't know that that's where I was.
And of course you don't understand what's going on because we don't talk about this. You're grieving, but no one told you except for this lady. So you don't have the emotional tools to deal with it because you don't know what's going on. And my friends tuning in today, there's so many people who struggle with this. And yet we don't talk about it. So I'm really grateful that you came today. I'm really grateful that now you are having the words to articulate and to share with others. I'm going to make a pause right here. And I am going to give the people who are tuning in today a chance to send us an email or a text if they want to ask a question, studio@ adventistradiolondon. You can send a text to 82228. That's 82228. Make sure you begin that message with the word hope. We'll be back in just a minute. Make sure you stay tuned.